As you're coming in, if you could just pop your name and county in the chat, that would be great. Thank you. Just going to give it a few moments while a few more people are joining. Okay, I think we are probably ready to make a start. All right, well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for making the time to come and watch the webinar tonight. I'm Carolyn Hare, and I'm the Anglia Outdoor and Adventure Team Leader. I'd like to welcome everybody on behalf of Claire Corse, our Deputy Chief Commissioner that would have been with you tonight, but unfortunately she's got one of those horrible bugs that's going around at the moment, and so is not able to join us. But we wish her well, and I'm sure she'll soon make a fast recovery. So, aim of this evening is mainly to look at Wren Part 2. Everybody's favourite, I'm sure, but we have an expert here to help us, I'm very pleased to say. So, but before I introduce you to Karen, can I ask, as we go through, please use the chat. So as we're progressing, any questions, pop them in the chat. We'll be monitoring them, and hopefully by the end of the evening, we'll have been able to answer most, if not all, of your questions. So at that point, I'm going to hand over to Karen Latto, who is going to run through the Wrens for you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much and welcome everybody. It's really good to be here tonight. So for those of you who don't know me, I am the County Residential Lead Volunteer for Hertfordshire, one of two of us who are in that role. And I'm here to talk you through Wren Part 2 because I do Wrens all the time. So the first thing is your Wren Part 1 should already have been done, and we covered that in the last webinar. So if you haven't already done your Wren Part 1, you need to do 1 and 2 together, and you need to do it sharpish. So the first thing for Part 2 is you need to work out who your home contact is going to be. This is the big new thing for Part 2. You need to go through everything in Part 1 and make sure that you have got it all up to date. And then we'll talk about the rest of the process in a moment. So on the screen, you can see kind of what happens as you go through Wren Part 2. So the leader in charge starts Part 2, you submit it, the authorising commissioner will do all their checks. It will then come to the advisor if the advisor needs to review it, and then it'll either be approved or it'll be set to finalising. And what you do then is you have to kind of go in, speak to your commissioner and find out what it is that's stopping it from getting approved straight away. So it's quite a straightforward process. At this point, not many get finalising, but sometimes there might just be something that hasn't been sorted yet, or something that you just need to check, or something that they just want you to take another look at. So don't be worried if it doesn't get approved straight away. You've still got time to kind of iron out the kinks, as it were, because it's just the paperwork that needs to get sorted and you'll be fine. Okay, if we move on to the next slide. So 4 weeks before is your deadline. That is kind of a really important thing because the commissioner has to have time to do their checks. It needs to have time to come back to you to change anything if any changes are needed. So you need to make sure that 4-week window is really met. That is coming up pretty soon for the pyjama party. You've only got a couple more weeks really before you need to start working on this. So now is the time to start thinking about these things and start, this is really timely to be doing it now. So you've got a couple of weeks to get yourself sorted with it and to kind of get everything ready to submit 4 weeks before the event. If you think you're going to miss that deadline, let your commissioner know, because they're the ones that can help you to meet that deadline, and they're the ones that can help you with the paperwork if you're struggling. If your commissioner is unavailable, you can always go to the next level up, or you can always go to your advisors and they can help you as well. Brilliant. Next slide, please. So this is the important one. What needs to be completed? So parts 1 to 6, you have already done, and all you need to do is update it if you need to make any changes. So this is things like number of girls. You might have more, you might have less. You might have put an expected number in. That's something to check really carefully because it needs to be the accurate number. Things like your adults might have changed. So you might have put in a team and then one of them's unavailable, so you've got someone else come in. Maybe you had a venue in mind when you booked it. Actually, it wasn't available, so you've booked somewhere else and you haven't changed your REN. So it's making sure all these details are correct so that if there's kind of anything that's changed, it is up to date now. Insurance, we'll talk about in a little bit. And then your program and risk assessment, you need to make sure they are updated as well. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. And then the new parts is your home information, your home contact information form, and who's going to be your home contact, and then the additional information on your program and risk assessment. But there shouldn't be anything really that will trip you up at this stage. It's just fleshing things out, finding your home contact, and then making sure everything is up to date and correct. Okay. So who can be your home contact? It does tell you on the slide, but I'm not going to sit there and make you read it all. If you're struggling to find someone, it has to be a member of Girl Guiding. Now, if you're running a big district event or a big division event, you might find that quite difficult to find someone. You have still got time to register someone, but an easier option for you might be to go to your advisors. So the residential advisor team might be on their own events, but some of them might be available to be your home contact if you're struggling to find someone. The same way, if you're doing events within your district commissioner might be available. So speak to your district commissioners or your division commissioners if you can't find a home contact within your normal teams. They might know someone who's available. It can be someone kind of within your area, but if not, your advisors could be a good person to contact because they might know someone who's available as well. You can also have the same person being a home contact for more than one event. So you don't think that person's the home contact for my rainbows, so they can't be my home contact for the brownies and the guides. If they're available on that weekend and they're happy to do it, they can do more than one. So that's something else to consider. If you've got a big event, you might just want one person doing it. It can't be someone who's closely related to anyone in the group. That also is a kind of a relatively recent rule. And that's something that trips you up. I know when I first started this job, it was quite easy to get hubby to do it. We'd leave all the paperwork on the table and everything would be fine. And, he'd make some phone calls if necessary, but that can't happen now unless they're a member of Girl Guiding and they've done all the training that goes with it. There needs to be someone who remains calm under pressure, especially if you've got a big event. This might involve establishing phone trees and things like that. So you need to make sure that person is going to be able to cope if there's an emergency. I know, Pam, you were talking about your event with your possible 500 girls going on. So you're going to need someone really reliable as your home contact. So think about who the ideal person would be, who can remain calm under pressure. There is a form, and on this slide, there is a bit highlighted in blue where the form is. They have to sign it to say they agree to do it with their membership number. And it's very simple. It tells them what they have to do. But basically, they need to have a copy of all the home contact information and what to do if there is an emergency. Have you set up a phone tree with parents? Because that's always an option you can do. Your home contact doesn't have to phone every single parent individually, but it's if you've got a small event, they probably will. If you've got a huge event, it might be you need more than one home contact because it's too much for one person. So think about what actually would happen in the practicalities of an emergency. How are you going to get that message out to all your parents? Oh no, it's flooded. We need you to collect. What's going to happen? How is it going to actually work in reality? Before the event, you need to give your home contact the details of the activity, the start time and the end time, the names of all the participants with their emergency contact numbers, and the more numbers you can give them, the better. The details of the home commissioner and the host advisor. If you don't know who they are, contact your county office and they'll be able to tell you who they are. I think that's about all for that one. Okay, so once you've got your home contact sorted, that's kind of the next big job you need to do. Then it comes the fun part. So with the activity plan, one thing you need to think about is how much detail goes into your activity plan. Now, there isn't really a right answer here. If you're someone who likes everything kind of organized military position and this is how it's going to work, then that's what you do. If you're someone who likes to wing it a bit and go, we'll see how it happens. Here's what we're going to do. Put it in. We're going to leave timings roughly. This is the morning. This is the afternoon. This is the evening. You know, if that works for you, that's absolutely fine. Things will change as they go. Everyone who's been on a residential will know how that works, especially at bedtime. Because you can say we're going to go to bed at 9:30, and in reality, it's 2 a.m. You're all still awake, and the girls won't go to sleep. Things, you know, morning wise might change if that happens. Don't worry about it. The detailed activity plan does not have to be, oh my God, if this goes wrong and we don't follow this, it's all going to be a disaster, because it's not. You're all experienced. You all know what you're doing. You're all running units all the time. And you just change things and adapt things and go with it. And, you know, it's the same on a residential. You don't need to worry too much about if I get this wrong, it's going to be a disaster, because it won't be. What it needs to be is just covering enough information so that anyone who picks it up can run with it and knows what it is that you're doing. So your commissioner, when they look at it, needs to know that you've got enough activities. Too many is kind of better than enough, because you can always take some out. They need to know that you've covered contingency for weather, especially in February. You need to think about, if you're doing stuff outside, what happens if it's chucking it down, if it's snowing, or if it's thunderstorms and hail, what are you going to do? You need to think about these things as well. Have alternatives up your sleeve. If you're planning things quite a lot inside and it's lovely weather, because you can have that in February, it can be quite chilly but nice. Are you going to get them outside and get some fresh air? Because trust me, if you can, you should. It would definitely give you 5 minutes for a cup of tea. And, you know, think about how meal times are going to work, how long you'll need for meal times, how many girls have you got. It can take quite a lot of time to do food if you've got a lot of girls. So you've got to think maybe building in a little bit of extra time to organise for meal times as well. Think clearly about your pickup and your drop-off times. I know that's the last point on here, but it is actually really important. Do you need to stagger your pickup and drop-off times? How many girls have you got coming? How big is your car park? Are they all going to be driving? Are they going to be car sharing? How is that going to work in reality? Think carefully about that. If you're going to somewhere with a car park that has 5 cars in it and you've got 50 girls, you might need to look at alternative arrangements for cars if you're going to have them all arrive at the same time. So just think carefully about the logistics. If you haven't seen your venue, contact them and ask them, can you just run me through the parking arrangements at the venue? Because that's something really important to consider. Okay. So we talked a lot about risk assessments in the last webinar. So you need to review your risk assessments, and that if you've downloaded some risk assessments, just check that they are all kind of like covering what you need them to cover. Ensure that it covers that you've got any additional needs for the volunteers or any girls. That's something that's quite simple to now you've got your knowing who exactly is coming, something you can add. Make sure it covers everything to do with your venue, especially if it's one that's not usually used for residentials. You need to think about the seating arrangements and things like that, and make sure that's all risk assessed adequately. And ensure you have seen the risk assessment for fire safety of the site. And if you haven't got that, it's a very simple process. You just email them and say, I need to see this. It would have been done as part of your venue approval. And I must say on that one, if your venue is not yet approved, contact your county team pretty much tomorrow morning or even tonight, because it needs to be approved for part 2. You can't put your REM part 2 in if your venue is not yet approved. So you need to make sure they are. I know the county teams across the whole region have been working really hard to get them all approved. I know in Hertfordshire we've approved probably nearly 50 or so new venues. There's been loads. So make sure you speak to your county team really, really soon if your venue's not yet approved. Or if you don't know if it's approved or not, because they'll be able to tell you. It's a really straightforward process. The county teams are generally doing it, and they'll help you with getting your venue approved if it's not yet approved. I've been doing quite a lot of talking. So has anyone got any questions they want to put in the chat? I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes and I slurp a drink. It's all quiet in the chat. I think I'm bamboozling people with everything. Hopefully not. So on the bottom of that slide, it's got the link to the risk assessment from the previous webinar from the website. That if you haven't been on that bit of the website, please go and have a look. It is well worth looking at. So if you've done the REN online, do you need to do the form for the home contact as well? No, that's a very good point. You don't need to do a separate form if you've done it online, because there's a link that you email them and they fill in. And that is the same information as what's on the form. Thank you, Samantha, for asking that. Brilliant. If we look at the next slide. So if you haven't already downloaded this document, it is well worth doing. It's quite a long document, but it has all the information you need about risk assessments in it. It's a sorry, I've just seen the message come up. Yes, Liz is on it. We're speaking that. So how do you add a volunteer for another unit? So if you're doing your REN online, to add another volunteer, there's a place that says your adults. And there's some links at the top. So you copy the link and you email it to the person. That's the easiest way to do it. So your online REN, you just email it to them. They then go in, they put their membership number in, and it kind of finds them on Go, and it will add them to your event. So they don't have to be registered in your unit, but they can be registered anywhere else. And as long as you've emailed them the link for your event, they will be able to add themselves onto your event. If you're doing it on paper, you just need their membership number. And your district commissioner will be able to find them on Go, or they'll be able to come to their regional office or county office and get the checks done on that person and find them that way. So it's easier if you're doing it on Go. That's one thing, it is easier if you're doing it on Go. If you're doing your REN online, to add volunteers from other units. Brilliant, thank you. So this document about risk assessments, it does depend on a lot of things as to what you need on your risk assessment. There's some examples there. The big thing for me is your type of accommodation. Think very carefully about risk assessing. If it's suitable for, if it's purpose built for residentials, it will be slightly different to if it's somewhere that's not purpose built for residentials. So you need to think carefully about sleeping arrangements if it's not beds, basically, because you've got to think about trip hazards with, are you having mats on the floor? Are you going to have to move tables out the way, and there's going to be tables around the edge of the room? You know, how is that going to work? So you got to think carefully. Are they rainbows where tables could be head height? Are they rangers and they're just going to do it themselves? That'd be fine, moving tables around, but that still has to be risk assessed. Individual needs of attendees and inclusion requirements. Now you know who's going. You should have confirmed final numbers about now, confirmed who's going. That will be more simple to do. Your health forms, when you do your parents' meeting, they'll be really helpful as well, because you can get the information direct from parents or direct from the girls if they're of the correct age to consent to give you information or are old enough to be able to give you information. And then think about if you need any additional activities that aren't in the packs. The packs are amazing, so they might not need that, but you might find you want to add some of your own ideas in, which is also awesome. You can do that. And think carefully about, what equipment you'll need and what ages you've got going for how that's going to work. Okay, next slide. So the page 24 is about the more activities. There are some examples on the next slides. You just need to think very carefully about what equipment you take for your activities. Are you doing adventurous activities? There is a list on the Girl Guiding website of prohibited activities that you can't do. Make sure you have checked that list. I'm sure that you have all checked that list and we all know what's on there. But don't worry if you've never seen it before. It's stuff that you probably won't be doing anyway. Although laser tags on there, and that disappoints me, and I shouldn't say that, but it's not allowed, I'm afraid. So if you've got laser tag planned, you've got to change your plan. But the rest of them are all very straightforward, common sense. But have a look on that list if you've never seen it. It's an interesting read. Let's have a look at the example on the next slide. So there we go. This is an example of some risk assessment for activities. It's all straightforward of things that you might do in your units anyway. You've got control measures, you've got local action required, and then you've got a place to confirm if you need it. That is the kind of the bit that you're updating now, that confirm local controls in place and actions being taken. You shouldn't be leaving that box blank unless it's not applicable, and then you write not applicable so that people know you've actually looked at it. So things like, I will tell the girls about this. You can write that you'll do it at the event. We'll tell the girls not to run through the corridor at the event. Date completed will be the date of the event. So it's all common sense. You've got to think, who have I got going? What are going to be the hazards to them? And how can I mitigate that? Brilliant. If we look at the next slide. There's some more. Give people, that's it. And then we've got about food. Great. So there's the useful information page. We've got Pam on the webinar now, who's going to be able to answer some questions if they come up, and Sarah, who is not available today, but is one of the residential advisors, Anglia. And they are wonderful people. Their email addresses are there. You can contact them with questions. You can contact your county teams with questions as well, or your division advisors with questions, if you have those within your teams as well. I believe that is coming up to the end of the planned. I know insurance. So most of the guiding activities will be covered by the standard guiding insurance that comes with our census and membership. But you need to check if you need additional insurance for generally adventurous activities. Some of those do. There's a list on the guiding website. Travel insurance, depending on where you're going, and transport. So if you're hiring a minibus, you'll need insurance and things like that. So you need to think about, do you need additional insurance? The best thing to do is to check on the Girl Guiding website, because it's really good at explaining exactly when you need it and what's covered by the standard insurance. And then on your REN, there is a section that says about additional insurances, and you just put the name and the policy number of the additional insurance if you need it. Brilliant. So there is some more helpful information. And then we've got plenty of time for questions and answers, because that's kind of what we wanted to do, is to kind of go through the basics of Run Part 2 and then give you all a chance to talk to us whilst you've got us here, and we've got plenty of time to talk through any questions. So if you've got questions, please do put them in the chat. Feel free to ask questions about residentials in general. If whilst you've got some advisors here, we can answer those questions too. Or if you're worried about anything to do with the pyjama party, please put it in here and we can talk you through it. That's no problem at all. So we'll give people a few minutes to come up with some questions. Pam, was there anything you wanted to add that I might have missed?
No, the only bit that I picked up was then asking a question, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's all that. Brilliant.
It was the home contact. If you do it on go, that it automatically generates the contact form.
Yeah.
And having done a couple on go, I actually quite like them.
Yeah, I'm getting used to them now.
Yeah, both from doing them and approving them. I actually quite like them. I do struggle with the advisor side of getting on them, but otherwise no, quite handy.
Okay, we've had a question from Alison. If holding an event for several units, do they all need to create events on go, or can one cover several units? So this is the challenge of the online REN. At the moment, and Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, they can only do one unit as an event.
We're doing one for a division event, and that's only one REN
at a higher level. So if you've got one division,
so I've got a division,
one district.
Yeah, I've got our division commissioner is actually in charge, so she's got division access.
Yeah.
But
if you wanted to take 2 units or 3 units,
I think you can. I think you can on the REN, because if you think about it, you're going to put all the leaders' names on. There's only going to be one leader in charge.
Yeah.
So you're going to have one. It will be on one REN because you'll have one leader in charge, and you'll have your first aider and everybody else and home contact. So as long as the numbers go on, and you can put in the title where it's, what is it called? You can put, pyjama party 5 units or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so the leader in charge puts it on their unit and then adds the adults from the other units to their event, and they just title it saying that there's other units involved. Okay, no, that would work. Yeah.
You just send them the REN link.
Yeah, but you definitely, Alison, only need to do one REN. I would do it on paper because I'm a bit old school like that. But Pam said you do it online as well. So yeah, you can do it online, but definitely if you're taking several units away, you only need to use one REN.
In general, do you need to let your residential advisor or home advisor know when you're overnight, and do they still need to be added? It's courtesy to let your advisors know that you are doing residentials. It's no longer a requirement. And don't ask me how you add them to the REN, because I struggle with that all the time.
Generally email them and
being a division advisor, I struggle all the time. It is really courtesy to let advisors know, and in Norfolk we do ask that you do let your advisors know, but they often slip through with us not knowing. So yeah, it is courtesy. But they've taken out the
volunteers.
Yeah, they've taken out, that you send the yellow piece of your triplicate REN or whatever colour it was to your advisor, and you get your little slip back at the bottom.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. In Hertfordshire, we do say we'd like to know that you're going away, just in case there's any issues, we can be on hand and we know who's away where and that as well. So No, that's good.
Going to the next one, if you've got different volunteers coming each day and not staying overnight, yes, they do, should be on, they ought to be on the wren. You just put the timings on. There's an option to put times. Yeah. Yeah, the wren does say advisors need to be involved in certain situations, but not all. So especially if somebody's done their qualification, obviously your advisor should be involved from the beginning. It's one of the first things in the book.
Yep.
And exciting. I'm on the first pilot call for the no going away with next Monday.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. I'm on the pilot for the mentors.
Oh,
Pilot
excellent.
call. So that is getting closer.
That's good to know.
Have we got any more questions now from anyone? It's your opportunity to ask anything that you still want to confirm or clarify.
Anything pajama party related? I know there was a question on the Facebook page that we've answered saying how many activities do you need to do? You do as many or as few as you like. The Eventbrite link for the promise renewal at 4 o'clock is about somewhere. I think, is that on the Facebook page?
Yeah, it should be. It will also be on the website as well, on the Pyjama Party page of the website. So, and that is, I'd say the Pyjama Party page is great for asking questions, but the best centralized place for information is the Pyjama Party page on the website. It should have as much as possible on there. So if you're stuck and can't find something, look on there, and then if you still can't find it, then pop a question in the group.
No, Rosalind, I'm sorry, I don't. I can't think it's going to be lasting long, but no.
No, I would have thought about 15 minutes maximum.
Yeah, most.
Yeah. We'll probably just wait about 5 minutes to just make sure that everyone has had enough time to log on and get everyone ready for their promise renewal, and then it will begin. And then we'll wish everyone a lovely event.
Okay, last chance. If anyone wants to ask anything else now before we close.
Can individuals join? Yes. Individuals can join, can't they, Henry? As long as they've got the Eventbrite link.
Absolutely. As long as you're signed up on the Eventbrite, you'll receive the Zoom link to the webinar that will go live at 4. It will also be recorded. So if you can't do it, your event on that weekend, it will be accessible via the website too after the event.
Just a reminder, we've got our final webinar on the 5th of February. So do look out for signing up for that.
I would give the shop a call on Saturday, Sam. I think they've put in the orders for all of the products now, so I'm not sure, but the shop isn't open on Fridays, but they are open on Saturday from 10 until 4. So if you give them a call on Saturday, they're in a better place to answer your question about that. I'm sorry, I can't give you a straight answer right now, but Joe and Louise are always happy to help. So.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions.
Ooh.
Oh, hang on, another one.
I've seen some chatter in the Facebook group and some questions come in about other people ordering teddies. I don't think it's I don't think that everyone is doing it, but I know that some other people are. It's just up to you and the budget that you have available for the event. So I'm sure they would love it if they got a teddy, but I'm sure they will probably have enough teddies at home. Fiona, yeah, the promise renewal will be recorded and it will be available on the website. So yes, and Jess, invoice for extra orders. If you haven't had one, I'm not part of the events team. I'm part of the comms team, so I'm not entirely sure when they're going out. If you send an email to events@girlguiding-anglia.org.uk, and they should be able to pick that up for you. I can always give Abby or Hannah a nudge tomorrow to see when they are likely to be headed your way.
Okay, any more questions then? Anybody got anything else they want to ask? Other than that, we will say good night and thank you for dialing in, and hope you have a wonderful pyjama party. Hang on, we got a couple more messages come in. Oh, the Skype,
Thank you.
thanks.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Thank
Thank you, everyone.